am feeling proud because my students did an awesome job today. And I will pass this on to AK.
Hi everyone, I'm AK. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and tonight I'm feeling excited. And I'm going to pass it off to Christina.
Hello everyone, I'm Christina Dancy. My pronouns are she, her. I am currently living in University City, but I'm a native of St. Louis City. And tonight I'm feeling emotional. And Megan, have you gone yet?
Nope, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
My name is Megan Betts. I go by she, her, hers. I live in the St. Louis Place neighborhood, and tonight I'm feeling a little chilly.
Thank you. And is that everyone, or is there one more person? Has Carrie gone?
I think we still have Carrie.
Yeah, so Carrie, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Carrie. I go by we, and I live in Maplewood. And I used to live here when I was a child, and I've been wandering around the world, so it's kind of strange to be back. But I also lived in New York City, where there was a lot of activism, so it's great to get in touch with all of you. Thank you for being here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, I'm so excited to be in this group and to be having this conversation with everyone. So just going to kind of dive into the questions. They're a guide. And has everyone? Yeah, everyone did go. Okay, great. Yeah, Jess did go. So yeah, these are kind of like a conversation guide. If we end up kind of hopping around from one to the other, skip around, that's fine. But these are just kind of, if we get lost, we can come back to here. So I'm just going to start, and I'm just going to be open. I'm willing to sit in silence, and I want this to be a conversation. So I'll sit in silence for a bit, and then I might call on someone to break the silence. So if you don't want that to happen to you, then you might as well just go ahead and talk a little bit. And so I'm going to start us off with our first question. How many vacant buildings have you noticed around your neighborhood or around the city, or wherever you're living if it's not in the city?
I'll just go to start things off. I'm in Central West End in a really weird living situation in the ladies' basement. But someone, I think Paula had mentioned that in the alley they come. I mean, most days of the week when I throw my trash away, it's a full dumpster. Or I'm sorry, it's empty, whatever. And so as you can imagine, I don't see very many vacancies in my neighborhood.
I can go next. I live in Clifton Heights in St. Louis City. We also don't have very many vacancies. Houses get snapped up pretty quickly. But I was just like reflecting on how they were talking about, I think they called it the vacancy spiral. I have like a whole bunch of notes down here that are a little jumbled. But I do remember that when my husband and I were looking for a house, that we did look in some neighborhoods where there was a lot of vacancy, and that definitely deterred us from purchasing in those neighborhoods. So I can definitely see how everything just sort of keeps spinning around. Because when we looked in neighborhoods and we saw there was a lot of vacancies, it made us not want to buy in those particular spaces.
I'll go next. It's Christina. So as I mentioned earlier, I currently live in University City, and similar to St. Louis City, the Delmar Divide exists here as well. Except you probably would notice it more anything north of Olive, and that's where I live. And vacant houses show up the same way they do in North St. Louis, in University City, that most people wouldn't think about, because usually people visiting U City are visiting near WashU or the Loop or something like that. But so it just like my experience growing up in St. Louis City, there really isn't any difference in me seeing those vacant homes in University City as well.
This is Megan. I live in the St. Louis Place neighborhood, which, if anybody's familiar with that, it's where the NGA is coming and where Paul McKee owns a lot of land. So vacant buildings are just normal to us. So I look outside of my house, there's 2 crumbling down, there's a lot of vacant space. It's everywhere for us. So you said, how many vacant buildings have you noticed around your neighborhood? A lot. So yeah, so we have a lot, and dumping is normal. So we don't have the dumpsters over here where I'm at. We have the roll bins. So I think that potentially makes it worse because there's no place for, if you can't fit it in the roll bin, then that's it. Those dumpsters could probably hold more than what the bins hold. And so, I mean, like a lot of folks, when they're full, they fill them to the top, they spill over, and then they just lay the stuff beside it. So, I mean, that's not illegal dumping either. That's just, we just don't have space for trash.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much to everyone who shared. I kind of want to add in the second question because I think it kind of plays off. So I'm just going to kind of combine it. Like, have you noticed, or how many vacancies and illegal dumping have you noticed in your neighborhood? And how does it make you feel when you see that, when you see those vacancies and that dumping? And Maggie, I think you kind of started us off already talking about that. Like sometimes if you look in an area where there is a lot of vacancies or something, it kind of makes you think like, what's going on here? Like, is this where I want to be? So I love to hear other people's thoughts about like how you feel when you see this stuff happening, either in your community or other communities, or how you feel not seeing it in your community, but now knowing that for a lot of people, this is a pretty like common reality.
Hi, I'll share a bit. Well, first, I'm currently working as a delivery driver, but I've grew up in Soulard. So I moved away from St. Louis for 6 years, and I had grown up in Soulard, and I moved to Tower Grove South. And within 6 years, I've seen so much change. I've seen how, especially Soulard, in the 90s, it was different. And I feel like there's been a rapid, maybe not so rapid because it's 2020 now, but how it's changed a lot of like the demographic of people that live there. An elementary school I went to down there is now apartment buildings. So there were more, I guess what I'm trying to say is, and down on the state streets and everything here too, I do see it a lot, and it's really interesting how from block to block it completely changes. And a lot of times there's a lot of houses that have been not even just, it's just that they're abandoned. They've been like burned to the ground. And then like today I was down on the state streets, and there's the own people, they had put like caution tape, not as Halloween decoration, but because the wall of their building was falling towards the sidewalk, and that is here in South St. Louis, not Tower Grove South. That's not as big of an issue, but it's very like disheartening, and also feels kind of like confusing because you do see that like Midtown's really getting done up, and Soulard's really done up, and then just areas that really need any sort of attention are just getting worse and worse. And then to kind of go off on the illegal dumping thing, I live right off of Grand. So we might not get a bunch of like big vacant like lots or whatever, but we do have issues. People come from wherever because we're right off Grand and just fill up our dumpsters. Some days we'll go out there and they're completely filled, and it is not us that like fill it with, and it will be construction material like wood and things like that. And so that's aggravating as well, because that just feels completely unpoliced. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? And Megan, I see you, and I know Jess.
Oh, go ahead. Do you want me to go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. You're just saying, so you're saying like, how does it make you feel? I mean, it's just frustrating. So, I mean, I'm hearing that folks have space in their trash cans, and we have, you know, I have an alley, the alley that we drive through, because we have like a one-way street. I mean, it's constantly, so, I mean, we're not even talking about trash cans, we're straight talking illegal dumping. So, furniture, just like clearing out of apartments, and it's just thrown in the back. And so, like, just a couple of days ago, we had the city bulldozers come. They come down the alley. People use the vacant to come over and dump their the working materials, whatever it may be. And then, I mean, it was, like I said, it was just cleaned up a couple of days ago, and there's already huge piles starting again of sofas and just whatever, you know, anything and everything. And I kind of know where some of it does come from out. We also have a lot of apartments that have high turnovers. And so usually when that month, maybe that month's rent is due, and, you know, I think they're still evicting people, because I don't think a lot of the folks have like real lease agreements. It might be like family members or something. So it's still once a month, you're going to see a huge dumping of housing stuff in the area. And then we even have, I mean, whoever does the poles, the light poles, I think like Ameren or somebody, they came out and replaced poles one time and just left everything on the ground. I was so livid. I went on Twitter and I was like, this would not happen anywhere else. You would not do this. And they were out like the next day cleaning it up. But I mean, that's just, I think we talked about it earlier. When folks see it, they probably assume that we as a community don't care. And then also that what's going to happen to them.
Thank you so much.
I think it's interesting to look at the neighborhood lines. I used to live in Benton Park. I don't live there anymore, but you lived in Benton Park, and there was limited vacancy. There was very little illegal dumping. I mean, the alleys weren't pristine, but it wasn't what we're really talking about. But then you go across Jefferson to Fox Park and to Graveway Park. You go south down to Dutchtown, and it's like they have a whole different set of services that aren't being provided there. It makes no sense, and it's infuriating, but that seems to be par for the course in the city.
Yeah. And Jess, you can go. Yeah.
Yeah, I live in South City in Shaw, and you know, we have some like small dumping in the alleys, but it's not the level of illegal dumping that we're talking about here. And the vacancy is very low for experiencing gentrification in the neighborhood. But I was involved in a cleanup in Pine Lawn 2 weekends ago, and just the scale was huge to see. I mean, we pulled out tires and all sorts of just like truckloads full of trash from the sides of roads, and there is more vacancy in the streets that we are working in, and you know, makes me angry. And you know, one of the reasons I'm here tonight, and one of the things that I've been really impressed with Dutchtown, is that it's one of the few organizations that I'm seeing that is making the larger scale connections with how to connect it then to using the law to enforce it, like that you guys are actually filing lawsuits on behalf against some of the landlords. And then also, I'm really interested in hearing about the policy changes that you are working towards, that I've been hearing about. So I'm kind of like at the, okay, what do we do collectively, next steps level? Because I love doing the individual cleanups, you know, and I think that is one way to address it, but it's still small potatoes. And so I would love to hear from folks about what we do about this.
And that is a perfect segue into the last question, which is, what do we think needs to change to make these things stop? I mean, there's lots of answers to this question, I guess, but for us in the series, it's really important to hear from y'all, like what you think. And so some people sometimes are like, I might not know exactly how to stop this, but just think about, like, in your neighborhood, what are some things that you would want to change that you think could make this better? Oh, I'm sorry. Just a reminder that we will be finishing at 7:45. So we have about 7 minutes left, and there'll be a 2-minute mark before, so you don't have to feel like rushed when you see that come on. We'll have 2 minutes, and then we'll go back to the main room.
This is Megan. I can tell you one thing. Well, before COVID, so we have a community association where we just got a new president, and we were all like ready to go to build our organization. And one of the things that we were talking about was this issue, and so we were going to lump it under our neighborhood beautification committee. And what we were going to do was to target those, find out who owns the properties, and as an association, like write to those folks and let them know that we are watching, that people live here, we are watching, and we really care about our community, and we want you to do the same. So, these are the ways that you can, officially get rid of your trash or whatever you're doing, but know that we are going to be holding you accountable. So whatever those next steps are. So for us, that was kind of the route that we were going to take, because they're really that connection between the community and the folks that are dumping does not exist. And again, I think that people just assume that, the residents don't care. So we really wanted to start on that level. I am kind of anti-policing of a lot of this stuff. So I don't want it to be a policed action, where I think that it's something that we can, I think that I see the neighborhoods that talk about that they don't have the vacancies, but they probably have neighbors that watch out. And I mean, we have that too, but we need to be, hold those folks accountable for what they're doing. Let them know, hey, when you come here, we're watching you, and we want you to stop. And if you don't, then we might have to go the other routes. So, yeah.
Thank you, Megan. Who else? What are some other things you think need to change to make this stop? These vacancies, illegal dumping. What needs to be done differently?
I don't
Well-
have, oh, please go ahead, Kari.
Thanks. It won't take long. So a lot of what we did in New York City was we started taking the land and making gardens. And, the city doesn't necessarily like that. So maybe they'll do a better job if actions are taken like that. I know there are community gardens here, but I'm not sure how they were developed. But in New York City, pretty much the community gardens were developed because they were vacant land. And there are a lot of them. And they're often in food deserts. I know there is an organization here that develops community gardens, but that's just one action. I think, trying to take it really points a big arrow.
Thank you. I love that. So thank you for that.
That's a really good segue into what I was going to say. I'm part of a policy pod actually at SLU, and we're trying to do environmental racism stuff actually. And so I think one way to go forward is, myself and others included, let's research what other places are doing. And, like Megan kind of said, if it's policing, yeah, we can decide if we want to go that route or not. But I mean, vacancy is not unique to St. Louis, although it is rampant in St. Louis. And so finding out what other places are doing is, I think, a really good start that I'm willing to kind of take a first step on. And in response to what you had said, Kari, we're actually looking at there's a mow to lawn thing going on, or I'm sorry, mow to own going on in St. Louis with LRA, if many of you might be familiar. And so we're looking at how we can kind of turn that into a project like you are actually talking about with gardens, and using that vacant land to do something and address food deserts at the same time. I'm finished.
Thanks so much.
What is the name of it? Could you put that in the chat? I would like to be involved with that.
The name of the policy pod? Or
yeah, whatever I thought you were talking about an organization that's starting.
Yes.
Go to own.
Mo to own. Yeah, that's something that's done by a city development group. But I can put some information in the chat that I know of.
Madison, do you mind if I seed a question
No,
to
of
the
course.
group? I know we only have 2 minutes. So, and it's about illegal dumping. So the only way, I mean, how do we match this? We want to stop people from dumping, but it's cheaper to dump than it is to take people, or we're about to lose, but it's cheaper to dump than it is to go to the trash transfer station and pay to dispose of your large scale waste. If you don't increase policing or enforcement, what is an alternate solution to make it so it is not easier to dump? If it's risky to dump, or it's not easier to dump. What I'm looking for an alternate solution.
So
I would
also know
describe.
go ahead, Carl.
I would describe one opportunity is beyond the fines is once you identify who it is, there are licenses that in play there for contractors that, you know, there's potentially something that can be done there with contractor licenses.